Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a completely neutral, fact-based explainer on the, frankly, deeply complex relationship between the United States and Iran. I mean, if you turn on the news, you hear about these two nations constantly, right? But getting a clear, unbiased picture of what is actually happening, that can be incredibly difficult. So our goal today is to help us all understand the history, the current tensions, and the future possibilities, using only the facts. We aren't here to take sides, we're just here to learn and understand the whole shebang together.
Geopolitics can feel totally overwhelming, so we've broken this explainer into 5 clear, easy-to-digest pieces. We're going to cover 1, the players, 2, the inciting incident, 3, the friction, 4, the stakes, and finally, 5, the resolution.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the players, understanding the nations. You really can't grasp the conflict without first understanding the nations involved. So on one side, we've got the United States. It's one of the largest, most powerful countries in the world, boasting this massive economy, a highly advanced military, and major global political influence. And on the flip side, we have Iran, an absolutely vital player in the Middle East. Iran is anchored by really deep historical roots, an incredibly rich culture, and an abundance of highly sought-after natural resources, specifically oil and gas. Now, even though these two countries are geographically on opposite sides of the globe, their political orbits have been colliding for years.
Which brings us to Section 2, the inciting incident, how the conflict began. Now that we know the players, we have to look back to figure out how a previously friendly relationship completely fractured. I want you to think about this for a second. What was the specific turning point that changed everything? Because, believe it or not, many years ago, the US and Iran actually had a pretty friendly relationship. So what exactly happened? Well, the answer lies in the year 1979. Before 1979, relations were surprisingly friendly. But that year, the Iranian Revolution took place, and a totally new government came to power in Iran. That's the dividing line. After that revolution, those friendly ties basically dissolved into what has now become decades of profound disagreements. This post-1979 era has been defined by severe clashes over politics, international security, and military activities.
So what do those clashes actually look like today? Let's move into Section 3, the friction, core issues and tensions.
The absolutely crucial point of friction, and one of the biggest issues globally, is Iran's nuclear program. This is where two completely different perspectives collide head-on. On one hand, Iran states that its nuclear goals are strictly for peaceful purposes. We're talking things like producing electricity and advancing medical research. But on the other hand, the United States and several other countries have deep, deep concerns, fearing that Iran could actually use this technology to develop nuclear weapons. This stark contrast in perspectives, that's the main engine driving much of the modern conflict.
Because of those intense nuclear concerns, the United States and others didn't just sit back and express worry, they took direct action through economic sanctions. Now, a sanction is essentially a giant financial barrier. It's a restriction placed on a country that makes international trade, selling products, and utilizing global banking systems incredibly difficult. These are designed to put heavy pressure on a government, sure, but they also severely impact the daily lives of ordinary citizens who suddenly find basic goods and financial stability completely out of reach.
But, the tension isn't just economic. It frequently spills over into actual, physical military operations. We're talking about real attacks, intense military maneuvers, and highly aggressive political rhetoric echoing from both sides. We've seen some incredibly dangerous incidents flare up across the Middle East, specifically in places like Iraq, Syria, and the Persian Gulf. And these events dramatically increase global anxiety, simply because any single one of them could be the spark that lights a much, much larger fire.
But there is a crucial silver lining here. Even with all these terrifying flashpoints in the Persian Gulf and elsewhere, and despite this constant, lingering fear of a larger conflict erupting, both countries have, thus far, managed to pull back from the brink. In so many incredibly tense situations, a full-scale war has, fortunately, been avoided.
You might be asking yourself, okay, but why does this specific conflict matter so much to the rest of the world? Let's look at Section 4, the stakes, the real-world impact. Because both of these nations wield such massive influence, any escalation triggers a dangerous domino effect. It's like a giant chain reaction. It starts with a disruption in the Middle East, and because that region is so absolutely critical for energy, global oil prices instantly spike. This in turn makes international trade and travel highly difficult and unsafe, which ultimately destabilizes global financial markets. So what does this mean for us? It means that tension thousands of miles away directly hits your wallet, your investments, and your local economy.
But looking beyond just the global economy and oil prices, we have to ask ourselves a much more important, human question. When governments clash and political leaders argue, who bears the actual brunt of the fallout? The answer, universally and tragically, is ordinary people.
When we pivot from the macroeconomics to the human side, we see the real tragedy of international conflict. We aren't just talking about abstract political concepts anymore. We're talking about families literally losing their homes, local, everyday businesses being forced to close their doors for good, schools simply stopping, robbing children of their educational opportunities, hospitals becoming so overwhelmed they literally can't treat the sick. At the end of the day, the vast majority of people simply want peace and a normal life, yet they're the ones who end up paying the highest price when nations fight. This brings us to our fifth and final section. 5. The resolution. Is peace possible? Let's look at how the global community views this ongoing tension. When you look at the global stage, you realize very quickly that there's no single consensus. People around the world hold vastly different opinions on this conflict. Some firmly support the policies of Iran, others firmly support the policies of the United States, and a really significant number of people criticize both governments. Understanding that these different opinions exist and listening to all these views neutrally is absolutely vital if you want to truly grasp how the world works. Bridging those vastly different opinions requires something very specific, and that's diplomacy. Diplomacy is the incredibly difficult but deeply necessary work of trying to solve problems through discussion, negotiation, patience, and compromise, rather than resorting to fighting. And look, peace is never easy. Sometimes negotiations succeed, and sometimes they fail completely. But even after the most difficult moments, diplomacy absolutely must continue if we want to avoid war. As we wrap up this explainer, let's lock these fundamental takeaways into memory, because these are the core lessons of how international relations function and how they fail. First, communication is essential. Second, misunderstandings are the exact fuel that feeds conflict. Third, diplomacy, no matter how frustrating it might be, is always preferable to violence. And fourth, we can never forget that ordinary people, not the political leaders, are the ones who suffer the most. Ultimately, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on or where you live in the world, the most important lesson is simply this: peace is valuable for everyone. Understanding world events like the US-Iran relationship helps us all become much more informed global citizens. But I want to leave you with a final thought to consider today. As our world grows more connected but also more divided, are we, as a global society, truly willing to do the hard, uncomfortable work of diplomacy and compromise? Or will we let the misunderstandings of the past dictate the conflicts of our future?